morality says that you have to follow the law, right? But conscience and ethical decision is not about what the law says, but what you say, what you do, how you interact with the world, precisely. Right. And so if you're ignoring the law, the moral code, then you're manifesting something about God, whether it's the power, this temptation to power, or the good. And the good only comes through human beings. Okay, only human beings can decide for the good. It's moving into the opposites, right? As the Buddhists say, a man of little intellect is a man that goes by karma, right? What goes around comes around. Or a man who, follows the law exactly, right? And then a man of medium intellect or a woman of medium intellect comes into the field of opposites. And now you have to make choices on what's right and wrong in every given situation. Okay, and there's so many opposites. There's thousands of them that you could probably bring to consciousness, right? And it's the mix of those that really makes your decision. That's where he's getting into alchemy, right? Because it's the mix of all these opposites running around in your psyche and how they finally come down on a given fact situation. Now what's ethical in this fact situation, right? Now you're God, right? If you're deciding if you're making an ethical decision, now you're making a godlike decision. Okay? You're no longer just an instinctual being. You're no longer a child that's following the rules with mom and dad, right? And so, and then the next step is to be above that. Okay, so now it's all ethics, and you can see it. You see the opposites spread everywhere, and so you've transcended it, which is what Job has done, right? So one of the points is, okay, in the first picture here from Blake, which he did in 1825, first picture from Blake, okay, Job's sitting there, he's with his family, all the animals are asleep, all the instruments are hanging on the trees and stuff, but they're not being used, right? And he's just living along, so he's not individuated at all. And then, shit starts to happen, man. Yahweh makes a pact with the devil, and then you're screwed. and Job was big time screwed. We can talk about that, but he was big time screwed. But in the end, we have the animals are awake. Everybody's standing up and awake. The instruments are being played. So the creativity of the instruments is coming through, so you're getting the benefit of your creativity. And, so that's the end state. That's the beginning state and the end state. So in the beginning state, you're kind of asleep, and then you go all through this shit, right? And then somewhere along the line, it clicks that this is what life is about. It's about sacrificing yourself for something else, okay, as Jesus made a sacrifice, but he was only providing an example, okay, of sacrifice. But when it finally clicks when you realize, wow, that's what it's about, that you can't have everything the way you want it, like the baby does, right? The baby is Yahweh, and the baby just wants everything perfect. But when you grow up, then you reach this transpersonal state, which is what Edinger and Jung are saying is the sort of the godlike state. Okay, it's not pure religion, it's not pure metaphor, but it's not pure logic either. It's, aha, I'm a mature individual and I can make godlike decisions. Okay, I can make ethical decisions, right?
So in a practical sense, how do the opposites get transcended? Because
They get transcended when you're not whipped back and forth by the opposites. Okay, so for example, the United States is still in this really bad state of opposites with the red-blue duality, right? We have to transcend that. Okay, that can't be the future state of humanity. If it is, we're going to have lots of war, right? And it'll go on for 1,000 more years. And so we have to, not only as a country, but as a species, we have to transcend this state of opposites and understand that we actually are the incarnation of God. And so it's up to us to bring the good into the world. It's not God is going to drop it on us. And see, I think that's the fundamental problem that, religion always taught me, pray to God in heaven. And yeah, and God will hit you with a lightning bolt, and then next week you'll make your touchdown. That isn't the way it works. Okay, it doesn't work that way at all. The way it works is God puts a certain amount of heart into you, a passion to become fast and strong and clever about how to be a football player. God puts that in you, that passion, and that passion is what gets you that touchdown. It isn't anything else. Okay, but it's in you. It's in all of us, but the question is how to find it. Okay, and that's what this whole story is about, because Job gets it from the beginning. Job gets it that it's in him, right? And so he goes through all this crap, and then, but by maturity, he sticks with it, knowing that there will be an outcome that will be better. And if not for him, for his children, right? And so and so that's a kind of heaven, right? Because if we just think about it logically, totally logos, okay, then we're animals, and when we're dead, right? And that's that. Okay.
But this higher function is built into children as well.
It is.
Because I've noticed when little children come up to me with a toy, first thing they do is offer me the toy. I take the toy, and then they want it back.
Right.
So there are the two opposites. There's two opposites. There's the it's for me and it's for others.
Right.
Okay, and they know that.
Right. Sure they do. Yeah.
They're only a year and a half old.
Yeah.
And they know that.
They know that instinctively, but then they do take it back, and so.
And it's hell to pay if you don't give them back.
Right. And so. Right.
But I find that interesting that's built in.
Well, it is built in, and this is why there are human beings. Okay, as Jung put it, consciousness is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. Okay. What about that springback out there on the cliff? Does it know it's alive? No. I mean, it instinctually knows that it's got to stay on the cliff, or the fox is going to get it. Okay, it knows that instinctively. But does it know it's alive? Does it know that it's the result of billions of years of life development? I mean, think about it. Every living thing that you ever see, whether it's animal, fish, or vegetable, is the result of billions of years of development. Everything. Okay? And so, that ant that's pestering your picnic, okay, has as much right to be alive as you do, because that ant is the result of all this development over billions of years. So what I wanted to suggest is that at a future session we focus only on this book and go through, even if you guys don't have it, I'll prepare an evening when we go only through the 21 points and look at each of these plates. These plates are William Blake's plates from the book of Job, and they're available on the internet. If you look up William Blake and the book of Job, you can find the 21 plates. There's 3 versions of them that he worked on. This one's colorized. There's a colorized one on here. He did this colorization, it turns out, and he did the colorization 2 different times. And so there's just a straight lithograph, and then there's the 2 colorized versions that he did.
I have a question about, it sounds like it's the exercise of free will. So how does the free will fit into that? Is it a honing of consciousness?
I think that's what it's coming down to. I think that remember the Statue of David, what we're talking about, and how in order to individuate, you have to have pain. We were talking last week about the fact that you only learn stuff by pain. If everything's hunky-dory, then you might as well be at a picnic with your mom, right? But if you're going to grow into maturity and become a fully mature adult who contributes to society, and one of the points about Job is at the end, he's the teacher, and he's teaching others, right? And so, in order to get there, you have to make a lot of mistakes. Okay, and so think of those mistakes as little chips out of your piece of marble to get down to that perfect Aphrodite image, right? and so we have to make mistakes. We really do. And breaking a rule can be a way of transcending, right? It can be a way of transcending, but you can't do it stupidly. You have to do it consciously, right? You have to know what rules to break. Okay, for example, when I come back from hospice every day, I get to this point coming down Route 2 where I have to come out into the Naval Academy Bridge area toward the War Memorial, right? You have to stop there. Okay, but there's a blinking red light, and okay, the law says you have to stop fully, and if you don't stop fully, you haven't stopped, right? And one day I actually saw there was a policeman sitting right there, very obviously fishing. He was right next to the road. He was off the road, but he was right next to the stop sign. And everybody's coming down that ramp, and they're kind of pushing you to get across, right? Go, go. And so the tendency is to want to roll through. But when the day he was fishing, the guy right in front of me rolled through, and boom, he stopped him right away. Okay, well, that's the risk. That if you get caught, but sometimes you have to break the rules, and that's in that situation at that place where there's usually not that much traffic coming up from the War Memorial up toward Pasadena, right? There's not much traffic coming up there, so why hold up 20 cars behind you because of the fact there's a stop sign there?
And risk what? Getting a whiplash?
Right.
Because you get nudged.
Right, exactly. And so you're kind of worried the guy behind you might get in the rear, right? And so sometimes you have to break the rules.
Because that's an ethical decision for all those people.
And everybody's making the same ethical decision, right? And not everybody is going to stop every time. If there's 20 cars in a row, they're not going to stop.
That is an excuse boundaries. I've made an ethical decision. It wasn't a moral, lawful one, but it was ethical.
Right, but when you get away with it, man, it's transcendent, isn't it? You know.
So the moral structure is really chimera in a way. It's not really. It doesn't have any binding force.
Well, aren't we seeing that in our politics this year? I mean,
Yeah.
we have
Every year.
we have a president who disregarded all the traditional rules and became president because he did, right? But
Celebrated for it.
and celebrated for it. But the problem is, now we don't have a container any longer. Our structure has to be reborn in some way because we're.
Recast.
It did need to, sure, and that's obvious that it did. I acknowledge it did.
So it required a total shake-up, literally pieces, so that you have something to rebuild again.
Right, and so it has to be rebuilt.
What's the purpose of the moral order? The moral order.
Well, the moral order is because most people are not. Most people are children, and they're still developing, right? People, we have a society that's filled with children, young adults, medium adults, ignorant adults, intellectual adults, all kinds of people.
Unindividuated adults.
Unindividuated adults. We have a society full of that. And so the moral order is like having handrails. Okay? It's like having handrails. I'm going to turn this off for a minute. I'll tell you a story.